And I have like an entire audience of people watching too.
Oh,
That usually doesn't happen. All right.
just square him up, please.
Yeah, I will.
Okay. Okay. So do I have a motion tonight to adopt tonight's agenda? Do I have a motion? Councilman Woodward makes that motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second, Mayor.
Councilman Robinson makes a second. Any discussion? If not, can you do a roll call, please?
Councilmember Newbauer,
Aye.
Member Robinson,
Aye.
Mayor Feldman,
Aye.
Councilmember Udvig. Aye.
Thank you. All right, moving on to tonight's consent agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt tonight's consent agenda?
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Councilman Robinson makes that motion. Do I have a second? I will make that second. Any discussion? If not, roll call, Jenny, please.
Mayor Feldman,
Aye.
Councilmember Udvig. Aye. Councilmember Robinson,
Aye.
Councilmember Newbauer.
Aye.
Thank you. Meeting open to the public, do we have anyone? Okay, well, this is a unique point in our meeting where we have some special business and giving out awards, which is always a special time for us. There are life-saving awards and citizen awards, and so I will pass this on to the chiefs that will be handling this. And I believe Todd will start, I believe.
I believe so. I just have them in a specific order, so we gotta line them up accordingly. So. All right. Mayor, Council, tonight I would like to publicly recognize 2 St. Francis police officers and 2 citizens for their outstanding performance and superior dedication to this community. In a moment, I'll introduce those 4 individuals, but I'd first just like to start by saying that at the police department, we always talk about and stress the importance of having a good working relationship with members of the public, and that those relationships are so essential to public safety and maintaining a safe and enjoyable community. Tonight, I would like to recognize Robert Larson, Kathleen Swing, Officer Amanda Bezuris, and Officer Nate Schweiger for being primary examples of that and for doing some truly extraordinary things. On the morning of January 28, 2022, these 4 would end up working together to accomplish a task that few can say they've done, which is saving a human life. On that morning, Kathleen Swing, an employee at Quick Trip, was going about her day assisting customers inside the store, including Robert Larson and his good friend Cody. It was then that the unthinkable happened and Cody collapsed to the floor. Robert immediately went down to provide aid to his friend by supporting his head while trying to assess what was going on. Robert took control of the situation and advised a store employee to call 911 while asking another employee to help him. And that other employee was Kathleen Swing, who then came around the corner to help. Kathleen placed a jacket under Cody's head, and both she and Robert checked for her pulse, not finding. And Kathleen, over the phone, actually later told me that at that moment she was hoping someone else would be around who knew more than her on what to do in that type of situation. But that other person just wasn't there. And Kathleen knew she had to do something. So she began doing chest compressions to the song Staying Alive, which is actually a song that they teach you in CPR class too. That's the rhythm that you're taught to do the chest compressions too. So Kathleen was actually singing that song. Officer Bezuris was on patrol in the city at that time and received a call. She immediately responded and arrived approximately 3 minutes later. Officer Bezuris entered the store and observed Kathleen performing CPR and took over for her while instructing Robert on how to prepare the defibrillator, which Robert did perfectly. A short time later, Officer Schweiger, who had previously been at the police department performing investigative duties, arrived and took over chest compressions, while Officer Bezuris, along with the fire department and a line of paramedics, all continued providing life-saving efforts to Cody. Cody was then transported to the hospital for advanced care, where he was eventually stabilized. So together, Robert, Kathleen, Officer Bezuris, Officer Schweiger, our fire department personnel, and paramedics all worked together flawlessly that morning to accomplish one important task, and which was to save a human life. And that's exactly what all of them did. They saved the life of Cody, who is here with us tonight. Four individuals along with all of the other first responders who have. So Mayor, Council, for their outstanding service and their assistance, not only to our first responders, but to Cody and to this community, I would like to present Robert Larson and Kathleen Swing with the St. Francis Police Department Citizens Award. Also, for actions taken that morning and for their efforts that directly contributed to saving a human life, I would like to present Officer Amanda Dezuris and Officer Nate Schweiger with the St. Francis Police Department Life Saving. Mayor and Council, I just want to end by saying that I'm truly honored to be working with officers like Officer Dezuris and Officer Schweiger, and very proud to work in and serve a community made up of citizens like Robert Larson and Kathleen Swing. And if the fire chief coming up soon, I just want to say we're also very fortunate, as we've said many times, to have the extremely well-trained firefighters that we do and the great working relationship that our two departments have. So thank you.
And let me add one thing, that this is what community is all about, truly all about. Thank you.
Mayor and Council, just to reiterate Chief Schweiger's comments, the cooperation that we have in the city between departments is how this becomes a reality in this community. This is a special and very unique time. This doesn't happen every day in like 26 years in public safety. These opportunities don't come around very often. And if not for the execution of our bystanders, our police officers, and our firefighters, the outcome would not have been possible. I'd like to recognize Captain Carl Johnson and firefighter Bridget Marshall for their efforts on this day. Firefighter Marshall actually accompanied Cody to the hospital as well, continuing that care with a line of paramedics. So congratulations, Captain Johnson and Firefighter Marshall.
I also want to say that Cody being here is a testament to what we're talking about here and what those awards are given out, but also to the services that our departments have done, their staff, along with the department heads and our chiefs. They have brought St. Francis to a different level. We are able to save a life here, as I stated before in past council meetings. Ambulances roam, they don't stay stationary in the city. So if you're lucky enough, if you have an issue, a health issue, and an ambulance is in that city at the time, then your chances of life saving or being saved are very high. But on the other hand, if that ambulance is in another city and has to get to you, the services that our public safety people, our police and our fire do is the difference between you being alive and sitting in that chair and seeing those awards being given. So I can only say that I'm very proud of myself of having the staff we have in place in the departments and the public safety end and the community feelings that we have in the city working with their government. That's how this all works together, comes together. That's what community is truly all about. So I applaud everybody here for the services and the end result of you sitting in this audience, being able to hear me say this. Thank you so much. You might go downwards, I'm gonna go. Anyway, okay. Thank you. Let's move on to new business, I take it.
What you guys did
It's never good news.
Yeah. That's true.
I mean, that's awesome when you see some right there in the audience.
Yeah.
All right, well, turned out pretty good, so now we're going to continue with our business. All right, new business. Item 9A, assessing update.
Well, Mayor, members of the council, I kind of think that was a setup. I don't know, assessor talking about taxes and values after that. I mean,
That's a
it's a little rough. You're talking about going downhill, right? Yeah. Anyway, well, I just wanted to quick introduce for folks that aren't aware. My name is Eric Skopist. I'm one of the city assessors here in town. Also have Chris Larson here. He works with me and does a lot of the viewing of residential property here in the city as well. So just kind of wanted to come and give you guys a little bit of an update as well as the citizens where things are at. So first thing is notices for valuations for 2022 haven't gone out yet, but I think they're scheduled to this week for what the county said. So folks, it's probably a good time to just kind of touch base on a few of these things. So first of all, I know we have some things in the packet I can't see tonight, but I'll just give you kind of the quick summation of everything. So our job as assessors is to value and classify property in the city once a year. And the basis of those valuations are quite strictly it's sales. What stuff has been selling for in the city. And our job is to be equal, to try to have similar houses and similar properties at similar values so that when we sell, we are at around what those properties would be selling for. Now, it's not ever going to be exact, but in mass, if you go down the street, you have similar houses in the same condition, you should have similar values. And so every year based on the market, we have to make adjustments. So as a lot of you probably are aware, house values, even commercial values, industrial values, things have kind of been going crazy. It's been a really, really hot market over the last year and a half. In total, we had 151 sales included in our study. Those would be arm's length transactions, not you sell it to your son or something like that. So those are what we kind of consider good sales to judge what things have been happening at. So the median values in the city for residential kind of depended on the neighborhood, but anywhere from 18 to 29%. And some properties, probably were even in the 30-some% range. So it was very significant. And but I want to stress a couple things. First of all, I know the council probably got something emailed out from the county, but this is not unique to St. Francis. This is kind of everywhere. In the years I've been doing this, and I do some, cities like St. Francis, some a little more urban, some very rural, it was everywhere. Everything saw, 20-30% increases this year based on sale prices. So the city of St. Francis, actually, we had a median increase of 25% roughly. And if you consider the 21 municipalities in the county, you're actually number 11. So you're pretty much right in the middle of what was typical. So just kind of, I know the council, I won't run through it too terribly much, but we gave you sort of a little example of something that would happen. So the process we work with is I gave you a parcel number and I said it was listed for sale in April for $259,900. It closed the following month in May at $280,000. So that's over $20,000 over the listing price on this particular one. Then the state looks at all of our sales and they can say, okay, they'll run some statistical analysis and say from the beginning of your cycle to the end over an annual period, what were sales doing? And they can kind of come up with a number, if there's a statistically significant number that says that same house that sold for $230 in January probably would have sold for $240 or $250 or something like that later on in the year. So what they'll do is they'll say those sales that happened early in the cycle, we're going to try to adjust them forward based on our numbers, just so you're not comparing your number off of something in an old sale. And usually that's not a big deal, but in a market like now, there's a pretty significant change that's been occurring. The end of the day, really what that is so on that particular one that sold for $280, we had $224,900 on it in January of 2021. So the ratio is a simple thing that we come up with. We say, what did we have? what did it sell for? On this one, we were at 72% of that adjusted sale price. Our job as assessors, we need to be on the median between 90 and 105 of what stuff's selling for. So we're at 72, we have to be well over, at least over 90. So if you do the math, that's how you get to 20-some% increases on average for the whole city. So on that one, we increased 27%. We came in at 91.9% of the sale price. And so I can give a little bit more detail, but just in general, that's how we set values. I did notice a little bit of a difference. If you were in this, I guess you'd say the more urban portion of town with the city sewer and water, those saw a little bit larger increases and stuff in the more rural zones. Just again, based on sale prices and things like that. But they were still all, upper teens into the upper 20% increases. As far as any other categories of property, commercial industrial properties went up on average about 11%, but commercial didn't do quite as strong as industrial properties. Industrial properties, they're in that 20% increase range as well. So again, that's just kind of how things have been selling in the city. Apartments were more about 9% increases this year.
How much did you say commercial like
Commercial industrial together was around 11%, but it was sort of a bifurcated situation where if you have a commercial property, it maybe only went up a few percent. Industrial properties, closer to 20% increases this year. And so that's kind of just general how we do it. And just to explain to folks, if you're not aware, your value increase doesn't necessarily mean your taxes are going to go up 25% if your value does. Valuations in the city, the first step in the whole taxation process is our job as assessors is to set the value. And what we do is we set the value for the city of St. Francis, and we do that based on house prices. Townhomes went up maybe a little bit more than other types of homes, for example. So when we do that, at the end of the day, we have an increase in the taxable value of the city. And the other job we have is to classify that, which means, are you a house? Are you residential? Are you commercial property? Commercial? Are you agricultural property? All of those have a certain tax rate that's set by the state. Basically, it's a mathematical formula that says, based on that, your taxable tax capacity in the city is a certain number. You folks here at the city set a budget, the school district sets a budget, the county sets a budget. Those are the primary drivers of what your tax is. And so what our job is we set the valuations, and your small portion of that whole valuation in the city of St. Francis, which as of 2022, if you took out the new construction, was $962 million roughly. So what we'll do is we'll have those numbers out there, they'll divide it out and they'll say you're some small percentage of that overall value. And what'll end up occurring is sometimes it'll shift. Say houses go up more than industrial property. The tax burden will shift a little bit more to houses. And then if you think back to 2008-10, the last time we kind of had a downward market, houses went down quicker than commercial properties. So all of a sudden the taxes on a house went down more, the commercial properties were higher, and they kind of followed a couple of years later. So it's always kind of shifting around, but just because your value doesn't go up, goes up, doesn't mean the taxes are going to go up that same amount. And just because we set an increase doesn't mean we as the assessor or you as the city are trying to get more tax revenue. That's something a lot of people think, oh, well, they're just needing to get more revenue. The revenue is based on the budgeting process that you guys, the schools and the county do every year. So,
and it's market-based too.
Correct. Yep, exactly. So what we've kind of been seeing, and like I said, it's pretty consistent now this year. Everywhere's kind of been going up, but you'll have those cycles where areas that are a little bit further away, maybe they take a little bit longer to increase. Well, the last 2 or 3 years, St. Francis, Bethel, places like that, they've seen bigger surges because it got so expensive a little bit closer in. People started to move out. And so you'll kind of see those shifting in the downward markets sometimes. Some of these areas that are a little bit further, they'll end up going down a little bit quicker because gas prices or because of, a lot of different reasons to that.
So market trend plays in there.
Yes,
Market trend
in our valuation.
right.
Definitely.
Because where you have a pandemic is causing more people less commute. So they're able to move farther out, get more bang for their dollar, which is what we're seeing in St. Francis, which could waste of value to be indifferent.
It's interesting you say that too, because like I said, I'm a contract assessor, I'm not on your staff, but I do some other areas, some more rural townships, things like that. And like I said, this year is the most consistent I've seen it in my entire career, where you can have an acreage an hour from anywhere. can have a small town, you can have an urban area, you can have a suburban area, all of them saw increases. And I've talked to a lot of folks, as I'm sure many of you have, where, oh, I grew up in St. Francis. I decided I want to move back here. I only, have to go in once a week, or I can do it all remotely. So they kind of get the best of both worlds. They maybe can get some elbow room space, but they also still have a decent paying job, maybe more in an urban area. So it's been kind of a unique situation, and I don't know if that's, we don't know how that's going to change, but there's a lot of folks that are living and working at their houses now, and so maybe there won't be quite as big of a drop off when or if things start to decrease, but time will tell on that. But as of this year, I just wanted to make sure I made you folks all aware, and the members of the public, that when you get those notices, if you have questions, my number will be on there. Please give me a call. Myself or Chris will come out there, we'll look at it, we'll talk to you, and we'll kind of go over some of the sales. And for most folks, when you start explaining and showing them what properties similar have been going for, that's usually helps just to get a feel for it. But I'm not going to say we're perfect. Sometimes we're wrong. We try to do mass appraisal, so we kind of get your information right on your property and on your home, and then adjust that up or down based on the market. So sometimes that works, and there's sometimes where there's outliers or things that we haven't picked up or aren't aware of, and things change on properties. So that's kind of the update I have for you. And then just a heads up, we have information for the newsletter, but we go out typically in the summertime and in the fall to go and review every 5 years. We have to go by every property in the city. Doesn't mean we have to get in every property, but we physically have to go there, make sure information is correct. If there's questions or concerns we have, we'll leave a tag for you. It's an orange tag. We'll have our ID. Feel free to give us a call. And I can personally attest your police department does a great job, because in St. Francis, out of anywhere, I get more police calls on me being out there than anywhere. In fact, I had one twice in one day last year. So your folks are very attentive, and I think Chris could probably attest to that as well. But I always tell people I would rather have that than somebody pretending to be me going out there and lurking around or doing whatever. So with that, I'll just stop and just see if there's any questions or comments.
Well, let me just say for the public here, if you have a question on the valuation of your property, like you just said, do call. Don't get mad about it. Call. It really helps us to help you. Talk it over, let them come out, we'll look at it again, and look at it and give an evaluation based on the facts and the market and everything else that goes with it. Those are important to call. The one question I do have, by the way, if you go back here, I want to understand this annual state time trend of 17%, because as I did the math on this, by the way, your math on the 224/9 to 311 was 72.3%. That works. The 285/9 slash 311 to 91.9, that works. But I can't for the life of me figure out how the state gets to 17%. So Darcy can't, I can't, and if my finance director can't, then I can't. Then I want to know how, why.
Yeah, well, that's one of those things that kind of reminds me of LGA calculations. You have about 3 people in the state that could actually explain it to you. So I'll be quite honest. What they'll do is they'll provide the counties and us as assessors a spreadsheet, and they'll look at, and that their time trend actually is based on basically a 2-year study. So that's a little bit why it might be a little less, because last year the market maybe wasn't quite as hot. Excuse me, by saying last year, 2020 might not have been as hot as 2021. So they look at those 2 years in combination and kind of forecast going forward. So I believe last year, it's probably more like 10 to 15% increase. This year, it might have been 23 to 25. And that's where you get your 17, is when they're looking at a 2-year cycle. So no, I'm not sure where things will be next year, but let's just say things flatten out. If they find that it's statistically significant, which basically they plot everything, if there's a nice tight grouping going in a certain direction, then they'll say, all right, we need to adjust it. So if it was, 2025 this year.
They're not just picking out of the air.
No, it's all plotted on there, and there's a bunch of mathematics that create a situation where if you have 90% significance is how they judge it, then they feel, okay, pretty comfortable, we're going to do this. If you have 85%, if 50%, they're going to say, it's telling us that we're probably need to go up 17%, but we don't have enough, information to really say that that's what we're going to do.
Well, I say, because every other part of that pans out right as far as the mathematics part of it. It's just that I couldn't figure out how they got to 70% and how they came up with 311 and 1. But I mean, I'm sure they look at all the data and on a larger scale and come out with that. But it's just-
Yeah, and like you said, Mayor, it is kind of goofy, and I even with, should I really put it in there? But this is one of these years where it helps people understand. So when I say, yeah, they say, well, my house only sold for 250, but you're judging it out at 280. That's because your sale might have been a year old. And it's interesting because here in the city of St. Francis, there's been a lot of homes that have been built in the last 15, 20 years, or even 25 or 30 years in neighborhoods that are similar. You can kind of look and you can say, okay, that same model, the Riverwood model or whatever, sold in May for 240. Well, all of a sudden I'm looking at it 6 months later and the same exact model is going for 280. So that's a good way to say, hey, you can see how the trends have increased. And we all know kind of why. And labor costs, materials costs have gone up, land costs have gone up. And so that's kind of affected everything across the board. And at this point, people are still paying those for those things. You're still in the situation where there's bidding wars going on. It kind of floors me, but such it is, and we can't really, we as assessors are kind of historians. We're always looking at what happened.
The problem I see is the public see, let's say, for instance, one of these homes you're talking about 30 years ago that they bought, if they haven't done any improvements on that land, okay, they have the land, they've done some, upkeep of the land, whatever, but they haven't seen any improvements, and all of a sudden their price goes jack up, and they're going, well, we haven't done anything. They're not looking at the market around them because it's market trends that dictate this. So you understand what I'm saying? Is that because market dictates it, it doesn't matter what you do with your property, it's the properties around and the market itself that dictate the price, the assessment.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. And different states do things differently, but in the state of Minnesota, we are statutorily obligated to put things at the market value, which means what's the most typical sale price for that property. So as the sale prices, as acreages sell or as extra land sells, that dictates. So like you said, land increases because people have been paying more for land. They want some space to build their house. They want hunting land, whatever it is. And as the prices, you can just kind of see it move outward as the prices for property closer to the city go up, people just kind of tend to move out and look at options. But the whole thing with the virtual aspect of work and things right now is really kind of throwing some of those things on its head. So I'll be curious to see in the next couple of years if that trend stays that way or if there's some new.
Well, because you have to educate the public because no one likes their taxes going up. They understand why it's going up because they haven't done anything for their property, as I mentioned, but it's what's around them that has. That home that sold, last year, 6 months ago, now it costs $100,000 more than we paid for it. That's what makes the difference in their property.
Correct.
Sales and everything else you have to do. So I bring this up to emphasize to the public that don't take it out on the assessor. Okay, don't. And that way the police don't have to be called.
There you go.
Shotgun delivered, why my price is.
Just call the police if you see some creepy guy with me, right? No.
Or just white flags on there, choose or whatever.
But yeah, and just to say, it'll be on the notices, Mr. Mayor, but you can call us if you would prefer to meet us in person. Call us still. We try to like to come out and view. But there's also something that's called an open book session that is on there, and that's how the city of St. Francis has it. Where if you want to come in, there are 2 days where we sit in the courthouse in Anoka. We'll have all the information there, and you can come in if you would like or prefer to do that. And then we'll be there available for meetings at your own convenience as well.
Right, open and transparent, very good. I want to turn this over to council for their comments or questions. Joe, do you have any questions for Eric?
No, I have no questions, but thank you for your work past couple of years here.
Sarah, on council?
I have a great, I like how you broke everything down. That makes it easier for us to understand. So yeah, I just, I hope that you, as you're out, you will find many of our nicer citizens. maybe this time we can get you free coffee. But thank you.
Yeah, I have several. What area of the city will you be working in this year?
Let me see here. We have the newsletter. I'm trying to remember now. So this is our the same year that we started. So this will be our 6th year. So we're starting in the same area we worked prior. So I believe it's section, I want to say 31, but it's good. The area 47 west over by Quick Trip, a lot of that, the housing in that general direction. So it's going to be more the urban portion of the city. So we're going to do that. However, I just want to mention to folks too, when we go out, we also review, sometimes we have notes to say, check back on this property, or they've been doing work, or there's a fire, things like that. So just if you're not in that zone that's in the city newsletter, we still may come out if there's questions we had or callbacks, things like that. People work on their basement, it takes 5 years, things like that.
Okay. I think you do raw land as well, not just structured
We're in charge of doing every parcel in the city, whether it's, $100 on a city ditch or, $20 million property.
Okay. Also, do you use any algorithms or programs in your work when you can't get into certain places, or are you using other information other than physically seeing it, walking and measuring, et cetera?
Sure. So there's a few things that primarily make your value up. So one is going to be, if you take your typical house, how many square feet are in your house? What's the size of your house? The second part is what we have like the quality factor. So do you have just kind of a standard built home with, vinyl floors, stock cabinets, or are you everything custom built with high-end materials? So you could have the same size of a house with different quality. And so that's another factor. A third major factor is depreciation. You have a house built brand new, or you have a house built in 1940 that hasn't had anything done. So that same cost to build the house might be there, but if it's, an 80-year-old house, you're gonna not have a lot of life left unless you go in your remodeling, kitchen, windows, things like that. So that is our job, why we like to go out there and do things. To get to your specific question, if we don't have the information, if we don't know for sure, I'll just take the example of basement finishes. Most people think of assessors, do they have my basement finished or not? What we'll do is we go through the neighborhood and we try to understand what's typical for the neighborhood. So if I go through a neighborhood, for example, and I have a lot of homes and 90% of them have, a rec room, 2 bedrooms and a bathroom in the basement. I'm not going to just automatically add that, but if there's no indication that it is or is not finished, and we haven't been in for a while, or we don't have a good note as to that, we'll leave a note on that house and expect somebody to try to call us back. And sometimes we'll come out there, sometimes, especially with COVID, it was sort of a, we have to do our best. You can kind of tell when people are knowing the assessor, not exactly, but so we'll try to do that, and then we'll put what's typical. So if I don't hear back from somebody, and I think, okay, maybe there's some egress windows, maybe, everybody's pretty typical, I'll say, I'm assuming that you have a rec room, 2 bedrooms and a bathroom and an unfinished mechanical room. And then we'll put that on the record because we provided you an opportunity to at least contact us and kind of make sure our information is correct. And then if something sells, or if it's listed and there is no basement finish, or something's damaged, or a taxpayer calls us, we're more than happy to come out and, it's just a rec room, or they just added a bedroom for their one kid or whatever, and we'll correct the record. And sometimes, that means we're going to be over on a few of them. Sometimes it's going to mean we're going to be under because other people have done more elaborate work. So we try to, as assessors, do what we think is typical, and we're not just going to say, well, you didn't call me back, you get $50,000 more in your value. That's not how we like to operate.
All right, and you also meant, like the mayor mentioned, if you were measuring the pluses, you also measure the minuses, like deficiencies.
Correct.
Keep sagging, depleted, the fascia's coming off, or this, also really visible deficiencies in the home. Is that taken into consideration as well?
Absolutely. So I'll give you the example of that 1940 house that I mentioned earlier. If it's original, or it's got a shag carpet from 50 years ago, that paths worn in, whatever the scenario is, we'll say, okay, this is the same quality as the guy next door that has the same house, the same age. However, the guy next door might have brand new windows, brand new siding, and kitchen, whatever. And so we'll take some of that depreciation off. Basically, it's just a percentage. We reduce it based on the condition, which is why it's important to come around every 5 years. Because sometimes, in the city of St. Francis, you have really good building permitting and whatnot, which helps us do our job. But sometimes things aren't permitted, or sometimes there's damage, or wear and tear, squirrels get in, things get overgrown, whatever. A lot can happen in 5 years. So we make those adjustments up or down as well. And so if you have questions, if you think something's off, or I run into this a lot, where somebody's lived in the house a very long time, and then the kids have it and they don't know what to do with it. And they say, well, it has a lot of deficiencies based on condition. We're happy to come out and we'll adjust the value down according to what we think it's worth based on the condition that it's in.
All right. Also, you see trends and you're given some benchmarks to do your job. How about like 2005, 2008, where things kind of went in the crapper? Now we have house valuations. People are paying $20,000, $30,000, and $40,000 cash over the asking price. How does that affect what you do? And can you see trends of things starting to go down? And not right now, not in the snapshot, but I mean, do you anticipate things, watch the market and see what's going on, or where do you get your guidelines from to change your theories?
Well, like I said, basically what we have to do as assessors is the way we're set up is we have to look based on what stuff sells for. So people could ask for the moon, and we're not going to, put that on there necessarily. We're going to say, what had sold over the prior year. So this is a good time of year to go over this. What we do is to set your values for 2022, which people will be getting in the mail shortly. We looked at things that sold from from October of 2020 through September of 2021. So it's a year, but it's off a quarter, just because we need time to get the information in and process and whatnot. And so we'll say, okay, this is what stuff was selling for. And you can look at any of those house examples. Most of them are going to be, under on it based on how things have been selling. So we'll make an adjustment on to that property and everybody's similar properties on there. And then we'll set a new benchmark. Well, I remember back, 2008, 2009, when things all of a sudden started going south really fast. I remember lots of angry phone calls because people were saying, I have all these foreclosures on my street. I can't, I can only sell my house for 150 and you guys have 190 on it, 200. And it's difficult to explain, but you try to explain to folks what we do is we're going to look at what had sold in the prior year, and that's where we're basing our values on. So if you have an appraiser that comes, tomorrow and comes up with a value, their value is going to be based on now, and especially sales that happened maybe over the last 3 months. When we're looking back at sales now at this point that are maybe 6 months or older. And so it gets kind of weird when you're going up. A lot of people are like, well, that's why the assessor's value is low. Well, usually the market's always going up a little. So if we're looking at data that's a little bit older, our values will probably be a little bit underneath that. As far as your second point here is what trends I'm seeing. I haven't seen anything slow down necessarily yet, but I will tell you in my experience, what I've noticed is a lot of people buy things now based on the payment a lot more than maybe the overall price. And that's not everybody, but that's a lot more prevalent now than it maybe was 20 years ago. So, I think a lot of what I've noticed is people are being able to purchase a house for more money because they could get a mortgage at 2.5% or 3%.
But that trend's changing too.
And that is, and so that's why I'll be curious to see, because I've had anecdotal evidence where I've talked to a few folks and they're like, well, we could have, when we started looking for a house, we could afford a $450,000 house. But today we can only afford $400,000 because the payment would have been the same because those rates have become higher. So I don't know if that will cool things. I personally hope it does a little bit, because this has been getting difficult. It's been almost unsustainable at some point for a lot of folks, and they get priced out of the market. But we'll see what happens. That would be sort of an indicator I look at. But again, our values are based, we have to base them on sale prices. And so that's always kind of a backwards looking thing.
And the last question, when it says in your statement, I think it's December 10th, you're welcome to come to the county and blah, blah, blah. We contact with you. So you're encouraging everyone to call you first, because your numbers get submitted to the county and then they put it to paper more or less.
Correct. Yep. So if anybody here gets their notices, they're going to have a couple things written on there. They'll have the first thing, will have my phone number, and will say, call your local assessor. I don't know if they put my name on there or what it is, but call your local assessor for information. And then there's also a listed this open book, which if you don't call or whatever, you still have the opportunity to come in person. And then you can do that even after that meeting. You can still contact me and we can still look at the property and still adjust the value. But really the drop dead time for us to not be able to do anything anymore is after what's the county board of appeal. So that'll also be listed as kind of one of the items, one of the last items on your valuation notice. And I forgot the date, it's 15th or 16th of June, but it's usually the middle of June. At that point, we don't have authority anymore to make any more adjustments. So I encourage folks, if you have, it doesn't need to be the first day or whatever, but if you have questions or you're thinking about it, give us a call, because we're more than happy to come out and, like I said, show you what has been selling. And I encourage that, because not only does it make sure our information is correct on your property and fair, but there's a lot of stuff out in areas that people help educate us about, what's going on in development, or, hey, this area is actually peak ground and you got me too high, things like that, where it helps us kind of discover what's going on. Things are always changing in town. So any information they want to share with us, we'll look at it and help out as much as we can.
Great, thank you, and I appreciate you taking the time. Thank you very much for your work.
I want to, a couple of questions I have here, by the way, is like, in the market right now, is what you're seeing here is an increase in mortgage rates and inflation's in play. So it'll be interesting in the next period of time that you talk to us, how that all plays out in the next years to come. Because again, the rates are going up and the inflation is in play where it hasn't been flat in last year before. So also a question I have you assess the value, but the actual tax amounts come from the county, correct?
Correct. So we set our valuation, we set our classification. You know, your house is worth whatever, $300,000 in your residential house, and you apply for homestead. That's basically where our job ends. And then the calculations are done by the county. Usually I think it's the auditor that does it, but not the county, they have it sort of a combined department. So that's the group that's going to be doing the work. They'll compute all that based on all those numbers, and they'll send those valuation notices out to folks.
All right, because my question goes like this. Let's say, for instance, that you're talking about unfinished basement, okay? Let's say you haven't had access to the house, so you pretty much, claim it's 2 bedrooms, a rec room, whatever, blah, blah, the basics, right? And you put that on the assessment, and then you go out there the next year, you see it, and it's not that, it's even less than that, okay? So you've assessed it at a higher value, but the next year you go out there and see it, and it's at a lower value, but their taxes have now been based off the higher level. Where does the correction come to them? And down the road, or they just have to eat that they paid 1 year high, and they get it corrected next year, or does the county make it retroactive, or?
Yeah, so typically what'll happen is when we catch something like that here, for example, we're setting it, say we're going out in July this year, that will be affecting your value in 2023. So it does not go backwards, just like the reverse of if I find out your basement's been finished for 12 years, I don't go back and say, well, I'm going to jack you up for 12 years and you owe all those back taxes. So that's kind of the way we do it. The only really availability to do that is if there's a clerical error. So what's defined, that's a little bit vague, but it has to go by the county assessor. It's after that June date I talked about. And I'll say, hey, look, it was, there was a major issue with it, or, we accidentally put the story height in wrong. It was, 1.5 and we called it a 2-story house, or, oh, I had the class wrong on this one, things that I could verify for sure. And I know there's usually a little bit of wiggle room where I can try to convince the county assessor to do it. But even any of those, he would do it and then needs to get approval by the county. So it's not the easiest process in the world. And my policy is, unless there's something I did wrong, or I, didn't provide you the opportunity, left a tag or whatnot, we try to correct it moving forward.
Okay. I like the open and transparent, everything like that. I like the ability for them to question. I'm just stating this more for the audience that might be looking at this, that the assessors assess the property, is the county assess the taxes. And then you can, even though you pay high off of let's say an averaging of what the basement might look like as it is stated before, and then what it actually might be, you don't know if it's not reflected backwards. So we'll catch up and correct the long run unless you can find, like you said, a clerical error. I'm just trying to make it so the audience understands that. Don't blame the assessor for what the county does.
Well, I appreciate that, Mr. Mayor, but like I said, and to get to the council member updates comment or whatever too, most people are actually very good. You think, oh man, never want your job. Well, you run into that occasion. Most people are understanding. If you try to be fair, try to be transparent, show where you're at and why. Most people, once they see how this is done, how the process goes forward, they understand it. And they're very respectful and very reasonable about the whole situation.
Well, thank you for the report. I'm glad our decision to put you in place instead of county is so far so good. It's working out. So thank you very much. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Okay, moving on. Let's see. Item 9B, final plat reporting extension, Turtle Pond Sports and Field Conditions. Resolution 2022-13, extending the deadline for the final plat of Turtle Pond Sports Edition. Number 2, resolution 2022-14, extending the deadline for the final plat of Turtle Pond's 5th edition.
Mayor, Council, before you tonight is the plat extension for the last piece of the Turtle Ponds development east of the golf course. This plat followed the land use process a couple of years ago and received approval back in March of 2020. Since that time, the development had been delayed for several reasons, both development, personal, COVID, and last fall, we had actually given them an extension back in September 21 to provide them time to move forward. Last fall, staff and the development team completed a pre-construction conference and they ran into another issue which caused delays. And at this point, they're actually in the process of transferring the land to new owners and will be and anticipate breaking ground this spring, summer, in addition to an additional property that is connected. So this one has a lot of moving pieces right now. What I'm asking for tonight is the plat be approved for another extension, allowing them the time to get all of these pieces moving, another pre-construction conference and in the ground still this summer, and with an extension to September 7th of 2022. with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Kate. So they're looking to go to September 7th, 22, like you mentioned.
Yep.
Because of the sale. And these new people taking it over, do we know anything about that at all or anything at all? I mean,
Mayor and Council, so we've been working with them for about 6 months. They're looking at a couple different parcels within the city of St. Francis for development. One of them happens to be acquiring this from the current owners. The gentleman that originally started this Turtle Ponds development passed away. His son has taken it over and his son is now transferring it to these new developers. We've worked with them extensively. We're in constant communication with them, and you will see this property along with a couple others possibly still coming through in concept, not too
so
sure.
this Blue Waters, my point is Blue Waters construction is not what we've seen in Meadows 1.
Correct.
Because that's very important to us, reputable long-term development. Okay. Yeah, I don't have any issues with it. I mean, we can cycle it and get it so it goes forward. Kevin, your comments? Any?
Circumstances aside, are we being compensated, not we, the city being compensated for the extra time that you have put into this or any departments and et cetera?
Yep, so Mayor and Council, all of the extension of Beth's time, legal time, and engineering time is made through their escrows. So that is paid for directly by the Blue Waters Group.
Okay, that's
And
all.
it does state here, by the way, at the time of closing, the fees owed by me to the city will be paid out at the time, so that my application is cleared for the city. Moving forward.
We probably haven't been paid up to this point, and it's still been out, just out there, the invoices been out there.
But he'll pay that, and then Blue Waters will continue.
Understood. All right, thank you.
Joe, your comments at all?
No questions.
Sarah?
No, I don't have any questions either. I think we need to go ahead.
All right, so we have two extensions of deadlines, two different resolutions.
Yep.
Okay, so are you getting ready to read this, or should I?
Actually-
Because I like when you read it.
It's just.
Okay. All right, so, do I have a motion? Well, do one resolution at a time, right?
Yes.
Okay, so, this is a motion to final plat recording extension, Turtle Ponds 4th and 5th edition. Do I have a motion to adopt tonight's resolution 2022-13, extending the deadline for the final plat of Turtle Ponds 4th edition? Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion, Mayor.
Councilor Robinson makes that motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Councilor Goodman makes a second. For any further discussion, can you do a roll call, please?
Councilmember Reelbauer,
Aye.
Councilmember Robinson,
Aye.
Mayor Feldman,
Aye.
Councilmember Udvig.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Moving on to the second, the resolution, do I have a motion to adopt tonight's resolution 2022-14, extending the deadline for the final plat of Turtle Ponds 5th edition?
I'll make that motion. Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Goodman makes that motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I'd like to give this one to Joe. Okay, this one to Joe. Councilor Rebar makes that motion. Any further discussion? Can you do a roll call, please?
Mayor Feldman,
Aye.
Councilmember Udvig,
Aye.
Councilmember Robinson,
Aye.
Councilmember Reelbauer.
Aye.
Thank you very much. All right, let's see that go forward. That would be nice. Exactly. All right, now moving on to item 9C, Consortium still code and track building.
Mayor and Council, in front of you is our annual street consortium that we participate in with the city of Coon Rapids and about 13 other metro cities. We've been doing this since 2017. Last year, we finished up District 5, which would be all the way on the east side of town. Now, this year, we're hoping to work in District 1, which is all the way on the west side of town. This year, the price come in for our portion at roughly $286,000. So what we're looking for is to authorize us or let us participate with the city of Coon Rapids on this consortium.
All right, and Jeremy, this price that we're paying is for 25 properties, 25 areas. Is that what I'm looking at here, or that list?
20, yes, correct, 25 different streets. Yes. Yep.
So-
Yep.
So it's 286, 586 by 25.
Yeah.
All right. This consortium is working out.
Yes, it is. And, you know, this year I kind of expected a little bit of an increase just with petroleum prices, which when we got the quotes, that's exactly what happened. So
Right, but if we hadn't had the consortium,
Well, correct.
it'd be a lot higher.
Yes, as you can see, I believe it's on page 77. You can see the fluctuation with the different companies.
Yeah.
I mean, you got Asphalt Surface Technologies almost up to $1 million there, so.
And that's another question I want to ask you, the breakdown here between seal coating, painting, markings and all that, basically, it's the top company you're going with, Pearson Brothers.
Yes,
Warning
Lights.
Warning Lights, Allied Blacktop, Pearson Brothers again, and then at the bottom, right?
yes.
Those are the ones you're going by.
Yeah.
The different services they offer.
Correct. So what happens is, a lot of them will bid on the same thing, but some of them will be cheaper on the crack seal versus the seal coating or vice
Or the
versa.
markings, whatever.
Correct, yes. Yeah.
So that's the advantage, council, that we get through the consortium. They bid it out, and they piece it all together and individual things, whether it be seal coating, paving, markings, cracks, and whatever, and they get a better price because it's bulk.
Correct.
And if we didn't have that right now, I can tell you we get a lot more, $286,000. So this was a good move here. So, Sarah, your comments on this?
I think it looks good. And I look forward to seeing some improvements on the street.
All right, Joe, yours?
I would just say I'm happy to still participate in the consortium anytime you can, pool those funds together. Similar kind of, I guess, to how the Met Council does with sewer stuff, or joint powers and that kind of thing. We all kind of benefit from that and save money. So I like that.
I would say consortiums, JPs and regionalization are the key to saving money, supplying more effective services and benefiting residents on all sides. Just good government. Kevin, thank you, Joe. Kevin, your comments?
Jeremy, again, prices are prices, but these guys, there's certain specifications of the thickness and the layers or whatever, whether it's paint or crack sealing, whatever, and you guys spot check various areas where they're doing it from time to time.
Correct. We're, I or one of the other staff they're out there usually most of the time as they're crack filling or seal coating, just to make sure they're putting on the proper amount and specifications, so.
Okay, yep. That's all I have. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Dave, what do we need from us on this?
The action is on the bottom of page 73. We authorize the acceptance of the bid tabulation and summary bids for the street consortium, direct staff to continue participation in the street maintenance program, anticipating the city of St. Francis portion to be approximately $286,586 as presented.
All right, well, that's a little stated. I don't have to do that again. And then, so I think we don't need to vote on that, right? We just, or do it.
Need a motion, a second, and a vote.
Okay, all right. All right, do I have a motion to what Dave just said? I'll make that motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
I'll second.
Give it to Joe. Council Blue makes a second. All right, any further discussion? Jenny, do a roll call, please.
Councilmember Mubar,
Aye.
Member Robinson,
I'd like Dave to say my aye, please.
Mayor Coleman,
Aye.
Councilmember Udvig.
Aye.
Jerry, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's keep that work up. That's a good idea. It's no different than going preemptive and proactive in our thinking of the city and maintenance on our buildings. It's a smart business. It truly is. It just shows government can do that if it wishes to. All right, moving on to item 9D, Poppy Street, 229 Reconstruction, Resolution 2022-15, approving plans and specifications and ordering advertisement for bids for the Poppy Street and 229th Lane Reconstruction and Water Main Improvement Project. I can't believe I made read this because it's taken 2 years to get to this point. So luckily I am sitting down. So Greg, I'll leave it to you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, so we've been through this project a number of times. Again, this is, as the mayor said, a resolution to move this project to the next step. Basically, it's going to be a reconstruction of the street with new curb and gutter, a sidewalk on the west side, and then replacement of all the 1973 water main and one water main loop from Poppy to Quay Street. I think for the most part, everybody knows what is going on with this project. So with that, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Well, on this, I always have questions, so I'll start off, by the way. On page 77, on page 78 of the packet, there's one phrase here, one line here, that says, remove and replace existing driveways and driveway aprons within the street right of way. How far of the driveways are you gonna replace? I mean, you're cutting off the amount to get the sidewalk and take out the culverts. How much of the driveways are you replacing?
Most of the driveways have to go all the way back to the right of way.
So when you're saying apron, that's against the house, so how far?
No, apron on, we call it apron on the curb and gutter.
Okay, because when I look at aprons as a contractor, I'm looking at aprons at the garage part.
No, flip it.
Because I was thinking, well, I think the driveway. All right,
We call them aprons also, but they're the ones, everyone will require an apron now that we have a curb.
all right, okay, but that's an apron here, because they're gonna get some questions on this, by the way, I'm sure, because people who think of aprons as I think, coming out that 3-foot section in front of garage doors is what I call an apron from a contractor view. And you might get that from a novice point of view too, but, all right, so, also, about the parking, we're parking on the east side, not the west side.
So as proposed, we're parking on the east side of Poppy and the south side of 229.
And then as far as the sod, we brought up the last question about sod versus seeding.
So I'm gonna try to get that letter out this week.
Okay.
Because this won't actually go in the online for a week or 2 here.
And then I want to bring up something to the council here, because you know how I do numbers and stuff like this, I kind of forget that stuff sometimes, but the total project is 967,436. Okay, and that's on page 79 of the backup. 967,436 is the total amount of the project. Of that, 152,000 is Oak Grove's in it. Okay, this is what boggles my mind. 152,000, which has been dropped from 282 down to 130,000 to their 152. Okay, and they have over 600,000 in their MSA account. I hope you're following me on this. Okay, and yet we're picking up $815,436 on the St. Francis side. Okay, and of that, $448,858 is coming from the MSA Minnesota State Aid Program. Okay, so what will be assessed for utilities, the water and the stormwater, will be $366,578. But my point is this has taken us 2 years of having a city with the only road in common, 1,100 feet, for $152,000. 2 years. If I put in the amount of time it's taken between engineering and staff and council and everything else with that, $152,000. This is like pulling teeth out of a mule. So my point is like what we just did recently about the fees for SAC and WAC to non-residents. That's why we do the line in the sand. It's time for Oak Grove to come up to the plate and act like a real city and work with us with reasonable requests and mutually beneficial situations that benefit residents on both sides. And I can't emphasize that enough. As I look at these numbers, I think to myself, my God, 2 years of trying to convince them to spend $152,000, which comes out of an MSA account of theirs. Does that make sense? I call it illogic logic myself, but that's what I'm going to leave it at that. Okay, I just want to put this on the hands and the minds of everybody to know how hard we work to try to be a sister city, and the reciprocation we get on the other end isn't as good as it could be. And if it was, the JPAs, the regionalizations I mentioned before with consortiums, these cities would be working like a fine-tuned machine, benefiting residents on both sides. As Davis pointed out to me, they're looking at remodeling and building a new fire station. This is a great time to talk to us right now and put the cost together for a better project and more effective services on both sides at a cost savings. This would be the time, but I'm not going to go there, as I'm sure you're not going to go there. So I'll leave it at that. Get my 2 cents in. I'll be happy about that. Hopefully I'll see this road done this year, hopefully, but I'll see it when I see the shovels in the ground. Okay. I'll move this over to your conversation, your opinion or points there, Sarah. Anything you have to say?
No, I think you said a lot. Probably gives a lot of some of our feelings as well. I'm just glad that they're finally going to top up even that little bit to just get it done. I mean, we fought with them, we paid staff, we've taken our time, all to benefit them. And like I've said in the past, I'm pretty much done doing that for them. Step up.
I appreciate that. And again, I just want to also emphasize with the numbers I've shown here, it just shows how progressive St. Francis is doing the right thing by our residents on the roads and how we've done, we don't assess for overlays anymore, and how we've done our plowing and everything like that. we've taken a preemptive and proactive approach to running the city in the last 6 years, and it really has paid off. It really has. And I wish we could get other cities to do just that, because the potential is unlimited, what we can do together. So, Joe, your comments on this?
I don't have anything to add, Mr. Mayor.
Kevin?
Just a question, do we have a handshake agreement or a signed agreement that the 152 is where they're at and they will participate?
As far as I know, it's a handshake.
Handshake, okay. Well, I wish.
Sorry, Mayor, 3 more.
I wish the city could keep up with the one, because I know they share University Avenue over, so God bless them all there. Also, I know there's some members of their council that are still wishing now they had voted no across the board on this deal, so I'm not holding my breath, but I know, I'm glad to see it come to this point, and hopefully we can get it done.
I would totally agree with that. I guess I'll wait and see, but Craig, your job has been exemplary. Thank you for your effort. Thank you for patience of all staff and council that have worked with us over the years. Unfortunately, we don't give out combat pay for that, so I'll have to suck it up. Whatever. Anyway, like I say, it just boggles my mind. You look at the numbers of what we're asking, because we're asking for a pittance on a big project. Out of $1 million, basically, $152,000. It's not their money. They're not raising taxes. And I really have to go on record and say this. I would have thought after handling the 220 residents that we did from the ponds and how well we treated them on that, to get them to sign on to hook to our system after they wanted to annex to us, and we went through the whole process of 8 months of discussion and only one participating meeting from them. I would have thought they would have dealt with us a little nicer and kinder on Poppy Street. But it is over. Okay. I have to say that. I mean, I just cannot be in the seat and not say those things. Okay.
Therapeutic.
And it is. Thank you. Thank you. All right, moving on tonight to adopting that resolution 2022-15, approving plans and specifications and ordering advertisement bids for the Poppy Street or 229th Lane Reconstruction and Water Main Improvement Project. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Councilmember Robinson makes that motion. I will make the second myself. Barring any further discussion. Jenny, do a roll call, please.
Mayor Feldman,
Aye.
Councilmember Robinson,
Aye.
Councilmember Updike,
Aye.
Councilmember Mulebauer.
Aye.
All right, let's see how this plays out. Hopefully they'll start working with us and we can have some benefits to both residents on both sides. I only say that because as I campaigned in last year's now, you have residents on both sides that want us to act like sister cities. But right now, since it's only been one side, it has to be both sides for it to work out. Hopefully that will catch on as time goes on. Patience, I hope will pay off. Moving on to item 9E, parking restriction on municipal state aid routes for the Poppy Street and 229th Lane Reconstruction and Water Main Improvement Project. Resolution 2022-16 relating to parking restrictions on SAP 235-117-002, Poppy Street Northwest, and SAP, I'm going to read this, I don't understand it, 235-147-001, 229th Lane Northwest, as long as Craig understands the language. So, do I have any explanation for that?
No, basically, this is required. I have to submit this to NDOT for the final plan approval. So again, there'll be no parking on the west side of Poppy and the south side of 229.
East side of parking. Yeah, no parking on the west side.
Yeah.
Do you have any comments on this at all before we go to a vote on it?
No comments.
Comments, Sarah? Sarah?
No.
Kevin?
No comment, Mayor.
All right, do I have a motion to adopt tonight's resolution 2022-16 relating to parking restrictions? I'm not going to read it all, you already have it. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that. I'll second.
Councilor Robinson makes the first, Councilor Moore makes the second. Barring any further discussion, Jenny, do a roll call, please.
Councilmember Mulebauer,
Aye.
Councilmember Robinson,
Aye.
Councilmember Updike,
Aye.
Mayor Feldman.
Aye. No parking. So let me ask you, Craig, one thing or two. Does that have to be agreeable by them, or is that going to say the size?
Both cities would have to agree. You're allowed to park on one side of the street if we have. So.
Right. But we have talked about this in a public hearing on that. There's no way we can park on the west side. That's impossible.
Right, because we'll have all the mailboxes, we have a design now, so the mailboxes fit
On the west side,
on the west side. And the hydrants are on the west side.
Yeah. that's very,
It'd be pretty hard to park on the west side.
and I know Dave would rather have his fire hydrants accessible at all times. All right, hopefully that logic will pan out.
You'll have to share the ribbon cutting on it, done.
So I'm gonna crack a bottle of champagne if I see this stuff. I'm gonna go all the way. All right, anyway, item 9F, city administrator search update. Dave?
Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council, the panel interviewed the semifinalist candidates for the city administrator search process on March 15th. We did that via Zoom. Thanks to the mayor and Councilman Unbig for participating. Thanks to City Clerk Jenny Wida for making sure all the technology went off flawlessly and without a hitch. So that was very good. You have 3 finalist candidates. They will be coming in on Thursday, March 31st. The 2 things that I wanted to inform council of was number 1, at this point, we were going to be starting the interviews at 3 p.m. I just wanted to make sure that that was going to work for everybody's schedule. It would be 3 different interviews, be 1 hour each. It'll be about 12 different questions. The second question I had is if council has any questions or certain topics or anything like that, please email me that. We'll get that into a proper form, get those lined up into the questions so that we can provide those to the candidates when they come in the interview process.
I want to commend you, by the way, for your work on that. You did excellent. I like the format, how you asked the questions, gave us time to write notes down, things like that. And I thought that was very, very good. And then at the end, we were able to have a conversation about our thoughts on it. So I thought you had a very smooth. I thought it was one day, but and I think I hope it made them, the participants, more comfortable too.
So just for the council, is starting at 3 o'clock acceptable to everybody's schedule? It'd be interviews at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and 5 o'clock. Then the city council would have the time after that to discuss and decide and potentially make an offer to a finalist.
Dave, this is the 31st.
The 31st, yes. Thursday the 31st.
You want to start it?
I will have to make that work, so I will make it work.
Thank you, Joe.
I'm 2 hours behind now, so it's goofy with Arizona not changing times.
But this one is very important.
And that's why I wanted to check in with the council.
All right, I think we all agree on that, Kevin? Yes, sir. Sarah? Okay, Joe, will make it work.
Yeah.
And then, all right, so 3 o'clock starting on Thursday the 31st. Okay.
And then council, if you have any questions that you would like in certain areas or topics covered on those questions, again, generally what we've done in the past is we've used some form of fashion of the questions that were asked at the semi-finalist stage of it because the full council has not heard the answers to the questions. However, if there's a certain area that you would like the candidates to respond to, let me know by the end of the week here, and I will get that into a form and fashion. Those questions will then be provided back to the entire city council, so you guys will see ahead of time what we're planning to ask the finalist candidates.
Okay, and so where the other 3 council members didn't have the knowledge we have through our interview process, they can get some information from that time.
Yeah, yes, yep. And if we have other topics that we'd like to cover, we will modify that accordingly.
Now, is this going to be at the city hall or community?
I have the community room reserved right now.
Okay. All right. Okay, good. We got our direction in?
Yep, thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you. Very good. Good, excellent job. Okay, now. Let's see. Okay, moving on to item 9G, a work session request.
Mayor and Council, I'm requesting 2 separate work sessions. As of right now, I am requesting one for April 11th to talk about some city business and emergency management updates. And then NINDOT and WSB are looking to be here on May 9th to discuss the Highway 47 project. If those dates work, I would like to move forward. If they don't, please propose this.
Okay, April 11th is a Monday. 5:30. Okay, and that would be That's for emergency management, would that be the committee room or city hall, or which ones? Or the public works?
We can plan on just the conference room at City Hall.
Okay, all right. So let me ask everybody here, and that's on the 11th, so April 11th, Joe?
Yeah. I should be able to do that.
Okay. Kevin?
At that 5:30 your time, right?
Yeah, which would be what, 3:30 yours or what?
It'd be 3:30 my time here.
Work session, City Hall, 5:30, Sarah?
Yep.
Okay, so that's good for the 11th, okay? And then moving on to the next date, which would be May 9th, another Monday. Another Monday. Again, that's what WSB and then that's where would you do that?
If possible, I'd like to do that at the Public Works Building.
Okay, Public Works.
Correct.
Okay, Public Works. Joe, what about that one?
Same time?
Time, 5:30?
If that's what council would prefer.
Yeah, I can probably make that work.
5:30, Kevin?
Yes, I'm available.
Okay, Sarah?
Yes.
Okay, let's go with that, and then we'll go public works, okay, with that one. So, once again, a recap, May 9th, May 9th at, okay, so once again, on May 9th, the Public Works will be a work session for WSB and MnDOT, starting at 5:30. And then on April 11th, will be a work session at the community, at the City Hall Conference Room, 5:30 on Monday. Okay?
Thank you.
Question there?
Yes.
And then we have a recap, we have on this Tuesday and next Tuesday as well. For the work session.
28.
Monday, the 28th.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor? I also have a question for Dave. Dave, if, and you may have said it and I couldn't quite hear you, but is it possible for the rest of the council that we're going to get the answers to the questions that they've already answered? The candidates?
We can certainly provide that.
Okay.
I did ask that, he did say that, Joe.
I thought he did, but I just was double checking.
No, that's good. Okay, all right, so we got the work sections all set up, but we're moving right along here. Okay, meeting open to public, Jenny, anybody? Okay, good. Reports, Bottle Shop annual report.
Mayor, council, before you is the 2021 annual sales report or annual report. I'm going to go through some bullet points and then open it up to questions if you have them. So 2021 was a good year for us. Even with construction, we still had our second best year in sales overall. So, you know, being a quarter the size for 4 months affected us, but it honestly didn't affect us as much as I thought it was going to. So it was a good thing that we were still open and didn't close down for however long we were supposed to close down for. Yeah, with that, we're still able to have our second best year. We were up actually 3% over 2019. So 2020 was our COVID year, which was an exceptional year. So kind of going back to 2019's numbers were, and being up over those is probably more accurate of a number. Looking at page 8, said that I know that our credit card numbers were high or higher than our cash intake, but we had a 3-to-1 credit card to cash difference, and that kind of surprised me over the year. I'm not sure why that happened. And it kind of brought up thoughts of possibly looking at credit card processors if we're getting the best bang for our buck with that amount of credit card intake.
When you say credit card processors, because we're not doing that now?
We are, but we can shop around. There's a bunch of different processors out there.
Shopping around always.
Right.
I mean, that's always, okay, sorry, go ahead. And I think a lot of it, by the way, I see today is because I just got a debit card where you can, if it's wired and I just tap it, and thing. I think people are seeing the ease of this. I know I've seen it in the store where they're doing it. But most of the people I see come to that store, very few cash.
Right.
I mean, it's all cards. For little amounts, it's cards. So I never wonder why somebody has that $10 in their pocket and they'll put $3 on a credit card, but that's, I mean, everybody's different.
I personally like to have cash in my pocket, so it makes sense to me. My wife doesn't allow me to have cash, so. That's not on record, right?
Well, it's not on it now. Well, big ball. I don't know when you go home. Okay.
Oh, I never mentioned it. Hand card.
All right.
So our customer count kind of corresponds with our decrease in sales, with both being down 10%. Still to this day, we get customers coming in, multiple customers a day coming in and saying that it's their first time back in the store from, pre-construction time, and everybody to a person says how beautiful it is in there. So we're very happy with how it turned out. With that, I'll take questions from you guys.
Yeah, I want to say to you, John, that 10% is very good with construction going on. The fact that we could have closed the store up and been really hard, and who knows how long that would have taken. It could have taken 5 months, it could have gone to 7 months, whatever, and you'd be down flat with no income coming in. So kudos to your staff for being able to, I saw you at work and how you did it, but I think that a 10%, we knew we were going to get a reduction in revenue because we were not at full capacity with product or space. So by limiting that again, those two items, we still pull off really well to be just 10%.
We also adjusted our time, our schedule, our
Yes.
hours too.
Good point, too, right. Very good. I'm glad you brought that up. So really, we adapted to the construction, but we weren't down 25, 50%. Then I'd say, wow, what happened? And we weren't down 100% by being closed. So 10% off is to be expected. I mean, it's like, I've always figured, like when I'm bidding on projects or whatever, it was in a 5 to 10% range because we all use the same vendors. I'm fine, but you're not going to beat by 25, 50%. My point is, 10% is acceptable through a construction period as we've done. And now, of course, as we are keen on promoting the new digital sign, whatnot, and everything like that, that's the key now, is to promote the store to let people know that it's a new bottle shop. They may not look at it because of the additions to the back, and they don't see it as it would be if it were to the north end, 2,400 square feet side by side. It would be perceived as a new building, but it's in the back end. But once they get in, they see the difference. Now we just have to get them in. The regulars are always important, but to expand revenue, you have to expand the base. And that's how we're going to do that. So, but I want to say once again, complimenting you and Crystal and Kareem for getting through that period and keeping it running like you did. You have a real rapport with customers, and they seem to love coming in there and shooting the crack with you, and I'm kind of people later. And then I think they like it, camaraderie or whatever, and I think that's part of their purchase. And I want to thank Jeremy and Parrish and Paul that helped me out on my end. Really a good job here, a lot of hard work. I'm still trying to get the lien waivers in place and the paperwork adjusted. I've never had to go this long. Usually within 30 days of the max, I have everything finished. But when you're dealing with Weber, everything's a little simple. So I'll get it done. But thank you very much. Joe, any comments you have for John?
Yeah, just thank you and your staff, John. Make sure you pass that on. Other than that, I don't have any questions.
Thank you, Joe.
Sure.
Great report. Again, like the mayor said, with the reduced hours and the limited space and availability, 10% is, I'd say, it's quite all right. Are you still noticing that there are some difficulties getting some of the products that, or?
Yes, it improved
Okay.
since my original I was concerned a little bit. We're gonna have a brand new store and not be able to fill our shelves, but no, I don't have any problem filling our shelves. If it's not one thing, I can replace it with another thing. So it's, in fact, I had somebody in this room come up and ask me for confetti wine. I can honestly say that I got that in last week, so.
Okay, I'll be in.
Okay. We could say that.
No, I mean, supporting the bottle shop, man.
Anything else?
No, that's-
Very good report, Paul. A couple questions. Future marketing plans, you got, a visual calendar of events coming up for,
Not anything yet. Once the weather starts turning a little, more like today and yesterday, we'll start getting more tastings going on. I know for our advertising, we're doing better with our webpage. I have Crystal in charge of our Facebook. I'm doing Instagram. So we're throwing stuff out there, trying to get people in. And we're actually going to be doing an in-store advertising also, kind of the same thing that Beef O'Brady's does, where you have different businesses around this town advertising, but we have like the majority of the space to do in-store advertising. So it's, again, we're trying to do our part to get them in, as far as, the tastings and whatnot, that they'll be coming. It's nothing set yet, but we will be getting it.
okay,
So.
and weekly specials, and I commented back on the Facebook page on the positive and stuff that you had, the stuff that looks good, the displays and the visual snapshot. Again, have we thought at all about a grand reopening? I mean, we kind of casually opened back up again, and the store's now open and all that's clear, the clutter's gone and dumpster's gone. Have you thought about maybe a reopening of some sort as the weather gets nicer, and maybe food truck again and a little hubbub?
We kind of did a grand reopening back in early December, mid-December, and we gave her up. What's that?
It was pretty cold and crunchy. I mean, more again, read, I don't know. It was just, I'm just going out.
We haven't brought it up, no, just because I thought we already did, but I can talk
What
with.
we are doing is, we have non-natural taco food truck coming in every Tuesdays and Wednesdays for all of April, May, in fact, throughout the summer. That starts in April. I posted on my Facebook page, and I know cities doing that. And then, I will have information to the council on the 28th work session about the new digital sign that we're looking at putting out on Highway 47, be two-sided, 5 feet by 11, I believe is, our size is still the same. Jody's still, that license changed.
She's looking at the zoning, correct?
We should be fine. Either one, a foot less is not gonna make a big difference. In other words, if it's 4 by 10 versus 5 by 11, it's not gonna make that big of a difference. But it's a big sign, it'll be 20 feet up, and will be off of, and with, instead of 35 millimeter in pixels spacing, it will have 10 millimeter pixel spacing, and it will be cloud-based and more up to date. Because our signs now are 12 years old, that's 12 to 15 years old. I will have that information to council at the 28th work session to decide which way to go with that. So, and I think that's very good because we're taking advantage of 12 to 16,000 cars a day that go down that road to want to hit them, and different than everything on the build. So I guess
I
that.
have a question.
Go ahead. Yes.
And are you considering any way to track various products growth or change? The one graph was really neat about beer sales compared to wine and whatnot. Now with the advent of your tasting area and more shelf space in the confetti wine, will you be able to look backwards or be able to take the time to look backwards and say, wow, we saw a spike here?
Of course, we have that ability, so yeah, I'm kind of a big spreadsheet geek. Not quite as big as Darcy, but I'm a close second / third.
Sure.
But yeah, no, we do track stuff like that. So
Okay. And then lastly, you were talking about credit card fees. I've talked with Darcy a couple times over the last year or half a year or better. I know some restaurants are charging a fractional 1.9, some 2.29, and I know the fees coming back, we incur those as a city and in the tens of thousands of dollars on a yearly basis. But again, your revenue is over $2 million, so we can afford to take a little bit, but I see where you're coming from as far as that. And American Express is one card I know that a lot of places just refuse to take because of there's other fees on top of fees and layered BS in there somewhere, so I'm glad you're on top of that as well, so. A very good report I'm happy you got a new building and it's nice and you got some good people working for you and, I'm excited for you.
Thank you.
And I just want to compliment, staff and council for the fiber optic change that
Yes.
was a big, you couldn't be in the credit card level you are with the old system that we had, that could not be. So, no,
Yes,
just
very-
software and hardware are just as important as our two beasts for plowing or our cars for patrolling, fire engines for fire. Software and hardware are just as important in the place that they play. So we have to understand that. I mean, there are some issues that will be discussed at our work session on the 28th about our finance software and stuff like that. It's time to bring ourselves into the modern day, you know, because hardware software is on a 10-year cycle. And just like digital science is on a 12 to 15-year cycle. You know, when you're running the end of the cycle, you have to make changes. So it's important to keep current, especially in today's world. All right, thank you, John.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. All right, moving on to item 11B, fire department.
Mayor and council, for your review is the fire department February monthly report. As you can see on the first page, we continue to meet or exceed our response time goal of less than 10 minutes with a 9-minute and 18-second average for the month of February. We also had a very busy month in February, the busiest February we've had in several years with 51 total calls for service, which is just shy of a 2-call per day average for the month of February. We did see a little bit of a dip in our average firefighters per response, but I do want to note that we currently do have 3 firefighters on leave. One's a non-duty related medical, one's military, and one's an extended personal leave until May. So that certainly has had an impact on our average firefighters per response. We continue the trend of higher EMS responses versus fire. 84% of our runs in February were categorized as EMS response, with 16% being fire-based responses. And on the last page, I'm happy to report we flagged the fewest amount of COVID calls or potentially COVID-related calls in quite some time. I did take a sneak peek into March, and we have yet to flag a COVID-related call in March. So hopefully this is a trend that we will continue to see for the rest of 2022. And we did see a slight decrease in our ambulance response times over 20 for the month with only 4. Those unfortunately are spiking back up again in March. And on the month, we completed 2 fire inspections and 2 re-inspections for a total of 4 fire inspection visits altogether. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, David. I'm glad about the COVID. I hope that continues.
Me too.
Great. And I also want to point out to staff and council that this EMS bill, the runs for that versus fire is not just in our city. It's in all, I've recently been in a conversation with multiple chiefs around the metropolitan area, and they agree with the same thing. And if you take that and expand it to the outside here, to the whole United States, it's there. I mean, you know, and as I talk to these chiefs, I've always brought up about someday it'd be nice to have an ambulance service in each city, and of course they realize how hard that's going to be to achieve. But that would be a way to get around this. I mean, but again, that's time and money. But they are all seeing the same thing we're seeing. So once again, a compliment to you, kudos to you for bringing that EMS capability, Todd, and you for bringing that for that award you did today. I emphasize, you know, the importance of that. Having a public safety department that, which is 2/3 of our budget, by the way, but that you can count on them to actually do a life-saving, that having that gentleman in this audience just shows the positive of that. I mean, otherwise that person could be not here and gone. So, like I say, I can't, and I'm glad the community works with us like that, and people step up to the plate. That's what community is all about. And again, I think you've done really well bringing that in the last years you've been here and done that. It's really changed the structure of our public works and public safety that how it's perceived. Very good. I don't want to say, if I have to have a heart attack, I just don't want to have it. If I wasn't ranting, I wouldn't did my shoe. All right, Joe, any comments you have?
Pretty much the same as I said to John, is thank you, Dave, and your staff, and definitely pass that on to him.
Thank you.
Great report. Again, like the mayor said, it's nice to see that different COVID calls, and like you said, so far none. So let's hope that we can make it through the rest of it. Are things still going well without that?
They are, it's very time consuming, but we continue to have a high degree of success over there, so, definitely labor one.
Okay, good.
Kevin?
Again, great report, Dave. Again, it was nice to see the mayor and the temporary current city administrator come and express their sincere enthusiasm for what you've done and accomplished. And I kind of got the vibe that you're showing their guys what they're being all they can be and more. So very much appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Well, it does show that you lead by example, and that's what you brought. Especially the example that Jeff brought to us, our attention, that the one guy who complimented you was one guy who very rarely complimented, so. Very good, Dave. All right, moving on to the next item, 11C, Public Works Monthly Report.
Mayor and council, I'm happy to present the February water and sewer report. One of the things that happened in February was that we actually got well one back from the EH renter. It was a complete rehab refurb. Happy to say that that is back in operation and ready for springtime irrigation. We did have a couple of pumps to pull this last month, 6 in total. I think we talked about that at the last council meeting. That is trended upward a little bit for that month.
But those two areas of lift stations seem to be problematic.
Yeah, and coincidentally, I think we were talking about how DL6 got better over the course since that newsletter. Well, that was actually one of the pumps, but so let's not talk about those anymore. And then one of the good things this month was that we didn't have any unable to read or no reads. That was good, and I know the guys are.
Is that unusual? Because I heard, I don't think I've ever seen that.
Yeah, it's happened a couple of times, but it's very sporadic throughout the whole year.
I must have sleep at the wheel. That's zero.
One of the other things I would like to say is the guys have been using the new lab equipment up at the water plant, and they're really happy. So instead of like an old smartphone where you have to sit there and continuously hit that to get it to react to it, it's very easy to use. And
That's that new equipment we just asked for?
Yep. Yep.
And then I also see, by the way, your locates, is that new tool that we got for you, that new locate tool, is that helping working for that 16?
So no, that is just the locates. These were just done with our general locator. We haven't done any field locates yet with the new one. That'll be happening probably sometime in April, I would suspect. So, but with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have.
Yeah, any questions?
I just want a very good report again. Appreciate the work that you guys do when it's baking hot and freezing cold out there. One question, granite, the granite that's spread here and there, we talked about a little bit last time. Will you guys do any more sweeping again this year? I mean, it seems like where I live to the cold sector and other areas, the snow is blacker and there's more granules in there. And wonder if it has any effect on concrete driveways as opposed to asphalt. And
so yes, actually, I just talked to our street sweeping company that we'll be using this spring, and they're actually be out starting next week doing the spring street sweep. Correct. Yeah.
Well, this is a dumb question maybe, but will they do any vacuuming along the edges? Because there's a lot of stuff that ended up high, and then as the snow melts, it's going to be in grass form. Not that it hasn't been a hindrance to me, but in another neighborhood, you see it, and that's a lot. It seems like an exceptional amount of gravel this year.
Yeah, and that has a lot of factors that have to do with winter too, and how much we plow. A lot of times it can shale a little bit extra loose material off, but typically they won't sweep or vacuum on it.
I question, could the public break it into the street and sweep it down?
Oh, definitely, yeah, yep.
Okay.
Yep, yeah, and when they come by the street sweep, it'll get swept up into the machine, so, yep.
Well, we haven't had traction issues, and like you say, you're using a product that would have normally been cast aside and not gone back in the system. I don't know if repurposing is possible, so, thank you.
There.
Great reports, and hopefully we can work on our pumps again and get people to stop flushing things they shouldn't be flushing. So, keep up the great work.
Your comments?
No questions. Again, gratitude to all the staff. Appreciate you guys and stepping up in our time that we need you to step up, and thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, moving on to the next one would be water and sewer.
Mr. Mayor.
Oh, thanks, Park.
Yeah,
Oh, park, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
they-
Well, it's okay. We kind of did, we did touch
No,
base
that's
on
right.
some of it, but
I'm 72 and I'll get mixed up with
Mayor Council, in front of you is the February Streets and Parks Monthly Report. Pretty typical February for us. A majority of our time is spent snow plowing, as you can see that there. I did notice a little bit of an increase in our salt usage. That can vary from, I mean, I know we got quite a bit of ice last month, so that can be a big contributing factor to that. Or very lighter dustings and things like that, so.
How much more are you talking about? I'm just curious. 169.6 tons of gravel.
Yeah, probably, you know, compared to how much we plowed, I mean, I would say that's probably up 30% higher.
But that's all, weather.
Well, yes, correct, and type of snowfalls, I mean, temperature, things like that. So.
Yeah, the one thing we don't want to do is chintz, not be able to get around.
Yeah. No, other than that, I'll answer any questions. you
Well,
guys
let me just state, which I've stated before, by the way, you guys, on both entities, from the sewer, water, and streets and parks, you guys do a great job. But I'm just glad that this council was open-minded enough for, what's the word, looking more into the future to give you the right equipment, the upgrade to the grader, the two beasts, the Mac and the Western Star, and everything else that you have, the toolkits and all that. That's made your life a little easier and safer, of course, which is our key first, is always safety. But having the right equipment to do the job is a big key, and glad that the council had the foresight they had like that and put those things in play 6 years ago. I mean, I know we have trucks scheduled for 2039 for a change, but I know you maintain those trucks really well. That's the other thing I want to compliment you, both departments, against, street parks and city sewer water, is that you're very innovative, take on a challenge, and work for the city really well. As your brand, your brand tank that you made, your example, and everything else you've done, and the new attachments to the back of the plow trucks, flappers and stuff like that, and everything is, and that you did the grader yourself, by the way, that changed the case council didn't know, that change on the grader, that upgrade was done by Paul and Jeremy. I checked the wells out. They were good.
Well, with that, a comment on that, we actually, I hope I didn't jinx anything, but we did remove the wing today. It'll be fine. I can still plow with the machine, so that's a good thing, but.
You took it off before? Yeah. I don't take my ice scraper off till June.
Yeah, well, just in case you gotta get on the gravel, so, but there was no broken welds or anything, so.
It's gonna be on you. You better knock on wood.
No, the nice thing about that machine is still operable if it does snow. I mean, the center blade is still 14 feet, so. And this time of year, we don't want to be pushing next to the shoulder anyways, because it's really soft, so. But yeah, no, everything held up well, when we were removing it, so, nothing moved on us, so.
Well, and basically, and by the way, all departments, police, fire, and public works, how you take care of your equipment, we appreciate that as a council, really do. It makes us, it makes things last longer and get good trading value as Todd does with the cars now, and Dave, making that department work as you have, what you have has been excellent, and then again, with what you guys have done, so it makes our job a little easier, spending money wiser that's our end. How to get you now to get the right equipment for you and dollars that are good savings and more effective spending for the city, for our residents that we serve. So thank you. Okay, that's my comments. Joe, any comments you have on that?
Nothing to add with parks. Thank you.
Sir?
I've noticed on here that you were out inspecting the parks.
Yes.
Did you find some equipment in some of the buildings that were?
Yeah, there are some things that we'll be addressing here once it warms up. They're starting to get used more now. We're seeing an increase in garbage and stuff. So that's a good thing. People are getting out and about and walking now. So, and plus over winter, as we all know, the garbage can get covered up with snow. So that starts to appear this time of year. So.
I have two questions. One, salt, you mentioned salt. Is that something that you buy ahead of time and with transportation, supply chain, yada, yada? You guys, what do you see coming up for that?
Correct. So what happens is each year it's actually another consortium style deal
Good.
with the state as a whole, the counties, cities, MnDOT also go in, and there's 3 separate suppliers that actually give prices to certain districts of the state. And actually, I already had to submit for next year. They're already going out for bids. So last year, we seen an increase basically of probably $10 a ton, which would, a lot of it was associated with delivery costs. So I expect to see an increase this year a little bit with that. So
Similar again.
yeah, and an increase in delivery because of fuels. So.
And you guys, do you carry much salt over from year to year, and does it compact? Is there a shelf life to that stuff?
No, if you keep it stirred up, you can reuse it. So this year I'll end up taking our max quantity and keep the building full, which will allow, because we get it for a cheaper price this year than we could potentially get it next year for a cheaper price. So.
Okay. And then your recycling survey, did you glean anything from that, or I don't think you had a recycling survey several months back about it was in the newsletter or online. Do we have too many? Do we have enough? Do you want to see more?
There's definitely I've talked to Tom about this a little bit. There's definitely an interest really in compostables. So we're looking at possibly doing a bigger station at Community Park for more compostables. We notice every week the can is completely full to the top. So
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, have we ever thought about having an area where people can, daily recycling like Andover has? Andover has that. I believe Jenny was telling me you have an area like that where it's a shed, whatever, in a room, and then they have the cans in there, so that you don't have to wait for these recycling days, twice a year or whatever, that we actually can bring cardboard to it. I know it's on a daily, you can go there anytime, certain hours, whatever. I mean, and for our residents, is that something we should be looking at in the future here?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Now that is going to require some more staff time with that.
Well, there's always a domino effect to it.
Correct.
But it's a service that I think would be something.
Yes.
Because I know, when I lived in Andover, I loved it. It was great. I mean, now we have to wait for, weekly recycle for ACE at that time, picking up for need, and or for these periods of setting annually, whatever, quarterly we do, like we do here a couple times a year, and we can just get it out of your garage, get out of the way. I'm sure you like it too. I don't hear you. Well, so we should look into that. Okay, just something.
I know the city of Nowland offers that too as well. They have a full-time recycle center.
Well, they can do it, we can do it. Okay? All right, thank you, guys. Appreciate that. Okay, moving on to council member reports. Joe, I'm gonna start with you, okay?
Yeah, well, that's all right. I don't have much to report. I'm out of town, so other than talking to staff about a couple different topics and whatnot, I really don't have anything to bring to the table today.
All right, thank you, Joe. Sarah? Kevin?
I just want to welcome 2 new members to our planning and zoning board. I sat on the meeting last week, and nice to see new faces, and we had a full crew, and Kate and Beth did an awesome job as they always do. And so it's just good to see community involvement. And again, they only had their first meeting, but they showed up, so that's awesome. And they seemed content, they're intent on what was going on. And we also have a senior building coming forward to us, transitional housing for some seniors, which will be coming before the council soon. And it's really it's a big deal for our city, and I want to commend Kate on the work she's done. And the group that's coming forward, it's really awesome that this is coming forward when you see the plans and the future design of what it could be and our main corridor. So it'll be awesome. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. All right, as I stated before, I'm going to bring information to the council in the 23rd session about the digital signs for the Ricker community, and then we're also looking at digital signs for community park, but that will be on the capital improvement plan for 23. I talked to Darcy about that. Tomorrow, the construction committee will be taking tours of fire stations and city halls in different cities tomorrow. As we vet these architectural firms, we have 3 firms that are in the vetting process. At this level, they're all pretty professional, but we want to get the cream of the crop, so we've done reference checks already, we will be doing bidding on the projects. And then this committee will put together a wish list of what we hope to see in this project that we're talking about. And then with the expertise of our architectural firm, we'll give it to them and see how it all starts to put together. But I want to emphasize to the public that are listening to this, the city has been planning for this financially for quite a while. It's time for our city to have activities in our city for our residents, so they don't have to go out to enjoy those activities in other cities. And this facility will be able to do just that. We're looking at meeting rooms with full kitchens for weddings and graduations, continuing education courses or whatnot. And we're also looking for indoor playgrounds and activities to benefit our residents. It's time for our city to start thinking like this because we're growing and the needs is there. Just to see where park is a park coming into play this year, which I commend community development and getting the grant dollars together and all that. Broadband is expanding coming up. There's a lot of things going on in the city. And I want to compliment staff and council for having the foresight to think ahead, think farther out. Because this city in the next 5 to 10 years is going to look a lot different than it does today, especially as we get to that magic number of 10,000 in population, which we are reachable to that. We're about 1,800 shy right now. And then of course, Linda said we'll get to 12,000. I think we have a lot on our plate here with 47 coming up on discussion here. I think we're smart to get a consulting firm to work with us on that. And I think we're going in the right direction. I think once we fill this seat administrator position, we'll have our coach. As I stated before, the owners of the team are the residents, the management is the council, the coach of the team is the city administrator, and then there's the team. And that's how it works. And all that plays into that is also the residents that play into that too, by the way. I think we've shown them that we are willing to work with them and we want them to work with us and that we service them because that's really what we are, it's a customer service business. So I think after these years, I think they see that. I think we pointed out that very well when we had that public hearing on Poppy Street. I think we had some people that were misunderstanding some information. Once they did, they came on board. And I think that really what it comes down to is you need to talk to us, get off the Facebook pages and come and talk to us and we'll get the answers to the best of our ability. As we've shown, we're willing to do it, we're open and transparent. And I was glad to see that about the assessor. I think that was a good move here. I think it brings it more on a level of more personal, more one-on-one with the city and the county being involved. I think that's important. I want to thank again all staff and that department heads and everything for your work and all that and your patience putting up with the council, which I know at times can be difficult or hard. No, patience, especially with me. But anyway, I want to thank you for that. And thank you for Joe reaching out like you are, doing the best you can. We wish to hope to see you back here sooner than later, but I really appreciate you participating the best you can where you are. It's important. Okay, very important. On that, I have got we just had a cleaning on the contracting end over the liquor mini. That's been done. There are some other little issues that we're taking care of. It's fan replacements that will be taken care of. Threshold replacement that I'll be doing at the back door stuff, but a little stuff there to be done here. And then I'm finally getting to the final paperwork again in Weber. Usually within 2 weeks to 4 weeks after a project is done, you get emails and stuff like that. This company takes a little longer. I'm trying to be as patient as I can so they can move on to the City Hall Fire Station project. But anyway, so once again, I just want to point out to the public that the City Hall Fire Station is a long haul process. We're just in the preliminary parts of it. It'll be a long process to vet the architectural firms, come up and talk to council to see how it's all going to work. But we do want public input. We will notify public at the time that their input is requested. And we hope this will be a situation that will benefit the city in a big way with activities and a more efficient fire department. As I've said before in the past, the only building that's ever been built and used for what it's being built for is the police public works building. This will be the first building, other than that will be designed for a purpose for city administration and for fire. And this is huge to bring us into the next decades. This is why we have to be smart here and build a building that will last 40 to 50 years if we can do that. I know we can. We've proven we can do that through our modeling at the large community, and now we're going to do it on a bigger stage. But I think it's definitely time to do it. And with the right chiefs in place and all that, the right staff in place, we can do it. I never go home doubting what this administration can do because I look behind me and I see the team we have in place, and I'm very confident to know that any problem that comes forward to us, we will solve in a matter of time and with the dollars behind it. But I know one thing I've said to Kate earlier today, and I've said in the past, is in the first 2 years, we had problems from past administrations, which took us a lot longer time-wise and money-wise to get it solved. We will always have problems, but because we're preemptive and proactive, our problems will be a little less severe, more not as time-consuming and solvable, because we're more on top of it than we are. Government is hard work, and one thing about the city and staff, we do the time and do the work, and that's important. That's the difference between us and the other cities around us. We do the work. So on that, thank you very much for all your service. I appreciate that. And any other,
No further business.
we could be out of here before 8 o'clock. My God. All right, shut up, Mayor. All right. I adjourn this meeting.
I second, oh, sorry.
With no further business, I adjourn this meeting on Monday, March 21st at 7:53. I'm meeting my brother last night. Thank you.
Actually,